My name is Oliver Pickard, and I've always dreamed of building my own car, together with my aerospace engineer and rallyist dad, Andrew.
Hello.
I found the perfect project.
This is my Cox GTM.
The remains of one of only 800 made.
And that looks bad, but when you look at it from the inside, it's even worse.
Crashed, fire damaged, rusted, unrestorable. We aren't just modifying, but completely re-engineering. We aren't just bolting on parts, we are making the tools that fabricate the parts to build my dream car. Bespoke, one of one. This is Project Mosquito. Hello!
Hello!
And welcome to the workshop. In this week's video, we're carrying on what we were doing last week. I know that's every week because we're building a car, but specifically in this area. So if you haven't seen last week's video, don't worry, you can watch it after this one.
Yeah, so we're going to make the side pieces for the centre console and the heater support.
And also, we're going to see the return of our side panels that we made for here, which is one of our, for the bulkhead side panels, that's the word, which is one of the first panels we ever made for this car.
Yep, which is quite a long time ago now.
Yeah, so, and now we can actually cut them to size and fit them properly, which is awesome. So what first, Dad?
It's the return of the side panels.
And that'll keep our bulkhead square, yeah?
Yeah.
So that then we have a measurement from our centre console to our bulkhead. It's been so long since we've had these out. And this was my first foray into kind of panel beating, I suppose you'd say. But we can actually cut...
In fact, it was more tin bashing than beating.
Yeah, we can actually cut... Thank you. I had no tools. We can actually cut a lot of this off. The fact that we managed to get this bead roller in here without a bead roller is quite cool. We can actually cut half of this off, I'm thinking now.
Yeah.
So
Save some weight.
yeah. What we need to do is make it to the height of the bulkhead and not the body, because the body has to be pulled down, yeah?
Yeah.
When you put the sill on, that tab and that slot fits in the slot on the sill. Right? What we need to do is cut this here.
Just cut that off there. No, there.
Right, do it so the camera can see it.
Yeah, we just trim this off, cut this off completely from there all the way up.
Well, the thing is, when you put it on the car, this fits obviously on this tube, but when you put it on, you're like, okay, how am I going to weld it on? Well, I'll plug weld it, so I'll drill loads of little holes and then fill those holes with weld. Okay? But this piece isn't doing anything structurally, so I might as well drill big holes in it, and then you're like, well, I might as well just cut it off and make this two pieces rather than one, which allows us then to tidy all this up. And this is part of the reason why we didn't weld the sills on yet. So what we can do is cut this from here and take our height out the bottom, which then drops this angle, yeah? So just like a tube frame, just like a roll cage or just like a space frame chassis, you can't join panels, so flat pieces of sheet metal, from the middle. You can only join them up from the edge or from a fold. And if you have a fold, then you should have a piece going to the center of that fold. And that's how you make a structural monocoque. Do you need 3 hands?
I need 3 hands.
Hang on. Luckily, you have a gangler son. wobbly getting glistened. And now you can see what I meant by this chassis is not complete. Because the panels will also add strength. I have a confession to make. We've ordered a tool rather than making one.
Yeah, we've ordered a bead roller. Well, I drove all over the place the other day trying to find all the components to make up a bead roller. And the plain fact is I couldn't get them. So we came back and looked online, and by the time you've actually ordered, got all your parts together and you've got the shipping costs and everything, we're cheaper just to buy one. They're not that expensive. I actually wasted time travelling around trying to find bits.
Yeah, we made our bead roller more expensive. Yeah. But as Dad pointed out to me, should we ever want to do something truly stupid in the future and make like a giant bead roller to bead roll big stuff, I don't know what, maybe a spiral staircase or something like that, we could actually use the parts from the bead roller that we've ordered to make a giant bead roller. And modify the parts that we've ordered that haven't even arrived yet. So this is why we can't have nice things. So yeah, we actually filmed this, explaining this to you earlier on. This is future us explaining this, but I edit these videos as soon as we start making them. And we had a corrupted memory card. So this is future us explaining. So back to your regular scheduled programming. One of the big disadvantages of not living in like a centre of engineering like the UK, or just living rurally, like in a lot of people in America, is the fact that you end up having to buy everything with postage and packaging. Yeah. So you end up paying basically like a 25% or 20% tax on everything that you buy. And it's really important to budget for that, because it really adds up. And if you're buying a bunch of parts and you're looking in different places and one part's cheaper somewhere else, bear in mind that that's 2 sets of postage and packaging. And we've found that a lot of places that sell something cheaper, so like you look up a water pump, say, and it's 10 euros cheaper somewhere else, that other shop often adds 10 euros or more back onto the postage. And it's really important to budget for. So if you're looking at parts now for a project that you want to do, and you're budgeting, and you're adding up how much it'll all cost, please remember to add in your postage and packaging. And it's one of those things that'll drive a project way over budget. Yeah. Oh no, I'm stuck. Obviously, we haven't invented this kind of construction. There have been chassis engineers for as long as there have been chassis, and they've all been trying to come up with the best way of doing it. And depending on what your job is and depending on like what you want it to do, there are many different ways to do it, be it a space frame, be it a monocoque, or be it a carbon monocell. A carbon monocell is probably the best. I credit this style of building a car to the Americans and NASCAR, because as soon as roll cages became the law in NASCAR and it was no longer just like put something that looks like a roll bar in your car, there was some clever NASCAR designers, and I'm not sure who did it. If you know who did it, please let me know down in the comments below. I'm not a big NASCAR guy, being European. But they realised very quickly that they could use their roll cage to add rigidity. So the standard roll cage is invented and they bolt it in the normal place. And then they realised, well, if they stretch the roll cage a bit and they kind of line some suspension points up, and over time they developed a chassis within their NASCAR, and the rigidity of NASCARs went through the roof. And that's kind of the way that NASCARs are built even to this day. It's a tube frame chassis that they put a body over the top of, but the floor and stuff is all part of the structure. And if you actually take a side shot of the Mosquito's front suspension, it's very similar to an old NASCAR Cup car. And that's just how we've both ended up at the same place. They're trying to do a very similar thing to us. And so, you know, engineering being engineering, you end up with something that looks quite similar. And that style of kind of chassis engineering popped up again in Group B rallying. And if you look at cars like the Peugeot 205 T16, if you Google Peugeot 205 T16 chassis, I'll put a photo up anyway, you get a chassis that looks a lot like this. You have a reclined 4-cylinder. Okay, they had some weird T arrangement with their gearbox where the gearbox is at 90 degrees from the engine because it's 4-wheel drive. But it's still a similar sort of principle where you have a tube like roll cage chassis and then you make your monocoque inside of that because they had to use a 4 from the Peugeot 206. And then later on, Elsa S4 did that with carbon fibre panels, and the ECV would have been the evolution of that, which created a carbon monocell inside a space frame. So that would have been like this. Plus, and I actually thought about doing the ECV thing and creating a carbon monocell inside our space frame. But it's not very GTM, it's very modern, and it would have been very time consuming. This car would have taken 5 years to build, and because you've got to create kind of molds for each thing, and I would have had to make an autoclave to make a floor and all of that. And that's super, super cool, but it doesn't really go with the retro vibe of our GTM. But this is cooler in my opinion because it uses the original panels that we took inspiration from and basically made replicas of the original GTM panels from our very crash damaged and rusty floor pan. You know, the center tunnel, the sills, the bulkhead and the side panels were all panels that were made way back when in early videos, and they're all replicas of the original GTM pieces, but we're using them in a way that strengthens our tube frame because there isn't room for a space frame. For a space frame, you need space, and we just don't have it. And then from now on, a lot of the panels going in can be very thin and bead rolled because they'll add strength everywhere and add rigidity everywhere without needing to be heavy and needing to add loads of weight, which is awesome. And don't forget that the body is also a structural part of the chassis. So our sheet metal ties in our roll cage with all the rest of the sheet metal, making it stronger. And then our body will be stronger because we've got a lot of work to do on that. And then that will bolt on to the sheet metal and to the tube frame and increase the rigidity again. Yeah. It really is one hell of a chassis.
And the thing is, we've still been miles under the weight, I believe, miles under the weight of the original GTM.
It's so much better. The second one goes in so much easier, doesn't it? Yeah. First one takes forever, second one always takes 10 minutes.
So all this needs to be bead rolled yet. So we need to bead roll the front panel to stiffen that up, bead roll these sides. This is 1 mil. And then we need to trim down the flanges where we're going to weld, because there's no point in having a big thick flange. 10 mils more than enough, and this is probably 30, so we can lose 20 mil.
Yeah.
You know, 3/4 of an inch we can trim off there, which saves weight again on both sides. And we've left everything a little bit bigger than we need to be, because when we bead roll it, in case it just pulls in the metal, so we've still got plenty to play with. We can radius this, can be all welded.
Obviously this has a radius here, and this is straight, so this needs to come in to match this radius here, but stay where it is at the top, yeah. Which is a bit tricky. And before we put something in a bead roll, we don't want a big curve in it that's a bit funny, so it's easy to figure that out. Yeah. So we're just checking our heater position now. Right, and lift. Oh. Right. So dashboard. We've got a, what is it, a 10 or a 15 mil lip here, because we're bonding in the windscreen. So the heater does need to come up then, doesn't it? Yeah? Because the dashboard is going to come down from,
There, that corner.
yeah, the dashboard is going to come down from the bonded edge, down and round. By the way, these bits that we cut off before will be going back on. These aren't being thrown in a bin. These will be trimmed down loads smaller and welded back in, as will these be trimmed down smaller. Because the reality is we could have just drilled big holes in all the way up, but the material in the centre doesn't need to be there, so it might as well not be there. But yeah, that will be going back in because it is a body mount and a door seal mount, because you need some wiggle room to be able to get the heater out. You can't just have it like, can you? We can't weld a heater into the car, because if that core ever goes, you need to be able to like replace it at least. So this is our original GTM windscreen wiper mount. Right, and here is our Panda windscreen wiper unit. It's not that bad. It's like one of the few pieces of car that aren't made of tank armour. It's rod operated because it's mini, yeah? I've also got a Twingo motor for it. So we can have 3-speed wipers. Obviously this thing will be able to go a lot faster than an original Panda. So that motor ain't going to cut it. One of the most interesting things I've ever read, and this might be just how geeky I am, was a thing about the development of the windscreen wipers for the GT40. Obviously when you're doing over 200 mile an hour down the Mulsanne Straight in the rain, you got to be able to shift that water, and that's a lot of water. So you need a lot of wiper. But yeah, we talked about the possibility of not using this, but it fits, there's room for it. That's all that matters at this stage. I intensely dislike this style of foam because it has a tendency to make itself into like an aerosol over the years. And one of the biggest issues with older 2CVs is the sun visors. This might sound silly, but the sun visors are padded, aren't they? You remember this?
Yeah.
When you get an old 2CV off and when you fold down the sun visor for the first time, it just throws like aerosol foam all over your cabin. They're disgusting because the foam like rots out inside. It's awful stuff. So that'll be gone. And we'll replace that with like nice neoprene rubber.
Yeah.
You know what's going to happen now, don't you? We're going to end up with man with a tin of paint syndrome.
Yeah, everything will end up with a dimple dye in it.
Not a dimple dye, a bead roll.
I mean a bead roll.
You're like me with the scrub radiuses and
Slip angles.
slip angles. Same thing, right? My brain can't do both. It will only accept one term. Need another one of theirs. Huzzah! Where's me note? I've lost me note. Oh, no. Go to tap it now with a hammer. That's the difference between our homemade sheet metal brake and a proper sheet metal brake, is that if you've got something that's like a really fine edge, it's really tough to do because it's just not that precise. This must be riveting TV, this, watching two men have great difficulty in making a cardboard cutout. Unique table?
No. No, not the last time.
It's warm. It goes through there as well. Yeah. Through the in between the of it all. Yeah, it needs this radius put in it, doesn't it? Yeah. Does it need a bend in it here? Does it need a bend in it there? It does, doesn't it? A little bit. Now we've put a slight bend in this that corresponds with the tunnel, because you won't notice the centre tunnel tapering at all when you get in the car. It will just feel right, you'll get in and you'll put your feet forward and you've got clearance. But if you put something straight next to it, you'll notice it instantly and it'll look off. And it's that thing of like, there's no 90-degree or 45-degree angles in nature. You don't notice that. You don't walk outside and go, oh my God, nothing's level, because it's all as wrong as each other. But if it's a house and it's got all the windows all square and level and then one window slightly wonky, you see it instantly. And it's that thing. And with two people with OCD, it all has to be as wrong as each other, and then it looks right. I should actually say, I'm not making light of OCD. I don't have OCD, Dad does. Dad has OCD, and it's a thing. And it does impact many people's lives, and I'm not making light of it. It is a thing. But I should say, attention to detail.
It is.
It's nothing of a slight crease. And in the shadow of the dashboard, you won't even see it. But if it wasn't there, you'd notice it immediately. Happy with that? Okay. This bend at the back needs tightening just slightly. But other than that... Snug as a bug in a frog. Well, Dad, we made it.
Yep, it's been a tough one this week. But we're finally here.
That's an understatement. We don't moan on this YouTube channel, but I tell you what, I could do. Everything that could go wrong has gone wrong. We've had failed cameras, memory cards, computers. I've been like super allergic and worthless. Like you've pulled us through, but it's been a challenge, hasn't it?
Yep, but it's finally in there. So now the centre console's in, which links the knee bar to the centre tunnel, and the centre tunnel is linked into the bottom of the chassis.
Which leads linked to the sills.
Yeah, which then makes all this area super, super stiff and fantastic, really, really strong.
It's the world's stiffest heater mount. It's superb. I'm really, really happy with it. It's driven us a bit mental because we can't bead roll it yet, so we can't tack anything in. So mocking it all up like this has been a bit of a nightmare. That's why it's got a million clamps on it. And doing stuff in fresh air is horrible. And this heater keeps getting smaller and smaller every week. We're whittling it down. But it will be removable. I know there's loads of people typing in the comments, but we'll show you that next week, along with all the bead rolling and the welding and the final fitment of it all.
Yep.
Because it's going to look mega. So if you want to watch that episode, make sure that you are subscribed to this YouTube channel. And if you want a notification when that goes up, then next to the subscriptions button, there's a little bell icon. And when you click that, you'll get a little notification thing, like when you get a comment.
And if you do like these videos, there's 50 odd of them. You can, almost 60. So if you can go back to episode 1 and watch it the whole way through.
There is a playlist. You can, in fact, many people do, binge watch these episodes like with Game of Thrones or something. And I shouldn't use Game of Thrones. That's a dated reference now. Shouldn't I? Stranger Things. I don't know what people watch. I don't watch TV. I'm too busy making it. Too busy building cars. But yeah, and there'll be another video that's I haven't chosen yet. Thank you all for watching. Please be awesome to each other, and I'll see you all in the next one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.